Welcome back to Draft House, everyone. I am Joe. Today we're going to go through 2026 NFL draft grades for each NFL team. This is an article on the Gamehouse website, so if you want to see more of it, you can obviously go there, check that out. We also have a new NFL draft page to check out where it has everything from mock drafts, to team mock drafts, to draft grades, everything NFL draft on that page, which is always fun as the draft is now a year-round event. So let's get this thing started. We're going to start off with alphabetical order by division, starting with the AFC East. We're going to start it off with the Buffalo Bills. Now, I gave this one an A. I thought that there are still some needs that they could address, but I was very happy with what they were able to get in terms of value and need. TJ Parker with the first pick, did fall after a bad last year at Clemson. I thought that was a solid pick there. Davison Igbinosun, maybe a little bit earlier than I thought, but an aggressive corner to kind of help on that side of the ball. Jude Bowery, I think can start and give the team, or can start giving the team depth, and maybe in the future be a starter. Skylar Bell, a wide receiver from UConn, a lot of people had a little bit higher than where he went. I was a little bit lower on him than consensus, but I still think good value can kind of help this team out. And then Caleb Ellerms, or the linebacker out of TCU, very athletic, makes a lot of tackles. That's something that can help that defense out. And Jalen Kilgore, the safety out of South Carolina. Zane Durant, the defensive lineman out of Penn State, a little bit undersized, but can get some good pass rush ability there. Kilgore was a guy that went way later than most of the draft community thought. This is a guy that it could be very versatile, but obviously ended up falling. I think it's an A. It's obviously, like I said, not going to fill all their needs, but I do like some of the fits and some of the value they got there. Miami Dolphins are next up here. Caden Proctor, Chris Johnson, Jacob Rodriguez, Caleb Douglas, Will Kacmaris, Chris Bell, Trey Moore, Kyle Lewis, Michael Taft, Kevin Coleman, Sadie Troyer, DJ Campbell, Mac Llewellyn. This is a team that I thought that, Caden Proctor went a little bit early for my liking. I like that they prioritized the offensive line. I do like the value of Chris Johnson at the end of the first round. I had him as an early second round pick. Jacob Rodriguez, I think, was a steal where they got him as well. And getting Kyle Lewis to go with them, is very good. Caleb Douglas was way too early. Getting Chris Bell is nice, but he's coming off injury. So I think they had a lot of picks, and they got some guys who might work out and some guys who don't. But, you can't just say, oh, they have a lot of picks, so this is an A draft. I think they could have done a better job with the draft picks they had, but I do think they're select ones, like Chris Johnson, Jacob Rodriguez, specifically Kyle Lewis. I think that were really, really good for this team. And a team that could have drafted almost anything because they got rid of almost their entire roster. We'll go to the Patriots next. We're giving them an A. I really like this draft, mostly because of the first three picks here. I like Caleb Lomu, especially at the value end of the first round. Dave Backus, the powerful edge rusher out of Illinois, I think can be a guy who at least gets some reps early. Eli Raridon, a guy who's, if he fills out his frame, I think sky's the limit for him. I think he can really help as more teams are going with multiple tight ends. Demetrius Crownover is a guy later in the draft that I think could be someone who ends up developing as a starter down the road. So they needed offensive line help. They got it. Still want to see them maybe address wide receiver a little bit more than just Romeo Doubs, but that A.J. Brown trade is reportedly going to happen, so that would definitely fix that as well. So A for them. New York Jets get a B+. I like this draft for them. Again, it's hard not to be like, hey, they have a lot of picks. But David Bailey, I think that was a little bit of a bugaboo for me. I think I would have rather go Arvell Reese, but now, Aaron Glenn feels pressure to get some production early. He can pass rush. Just not going to give you the run defense, and that might be something that maybe holds him back as a number 2 overall pick. You're expecting to get more of a complete player. But still a very good pass rusher. Kenyon Sadiq could really help this offense. A guy that, can play in line, can play kind of like in a slot role, whatever you need him to. Omar Cooper Jr. can kind of be a nice complement for this offense as well, going next to Garrett Wilson. D'Angelo Pons, one of my favorite picks of the draft. The comp is Aaron Glenn. He plays like Aaron Glenn, can help that defense. Daryl Jackson was good value. I didn't really understand the Cade Klubnik pick, but it's fine. 4th round flyer. VJ Payne and Inez Cooper also fill out a draft. I thought it was pretty solid. I think you should be excited if you're a Jets fan. It's not the greatest draft out there. I think you could have made some different decisions here and there, but Omar Cooper was good value. You made a decision on David Bailey. We'll see how he does. AFC North. We're going to go with the Baltimore Ravens to start. Viveka Ayone was the first pick. They needed guard play. They got the best guard in the draft. I thought that was really good. Zion Young, the edge rusher out of Missouri, a very powerful edge rusher, a guy that I think is going to help stop the run a lot. And then you got 2 wide receivers, 2 bigger bodied wide receivers in Jacoby Lane and Elijah Surratt. You also got the tight end because they're the Baltimore Ravens and they always take tight ends. Matthew Hibner, corner Chandler Rivers, tight end Josh Cuevas. Running back Adam Randall, which the owner actually made that pick, which is just something we don't see every day. So Rayshon Benny was good value at the end there too. So I like this draft quite a bit. They definitely need to get better on the interior after the guard play was bad last year. Tyler Linderbaum's gone. You get Ione, who might be the best offensive lineman in the draft. I had him maybe not the best, but kind of second, I think. That's something that could really help. Zion Young, I think, is really going to help this team. It kind of feels like a Raven, to be honest. It's nice physical edge setter as a defensive lineman. So I think they did a good job in this draft. Are they going to be the perfect team next year? No, but I think that they got a lot of good players. Cincinnati Bengals, we give them an A minus. Now, I am higher on the Bengals draft than a lot of other people. You factor in the Dexter Lawrence trade at pick number 10. They got one a very impactful player. Yes, last year was down for him, playing through an injury, but I think that he's going to be a big add to this offense. Maybe the production won't be the same, but he could really help this defense overall. Then you get Cassius Howe at a value. I thought that was really good. Sicario Davis was right where I had him in range. I know a lot of people had lower, but a 6'4" corner who can run the way he does, I think that there's a lot of potential there. He can help them stop tight ends, something they have struggled with for a long, long time, and also play outside if they want to move Dax Hill into the nickel spot. Connor Liu is a future possible starting center. I think he provides good depth as he comes back from the ACL tear. Colby Young was a guy that I wasn't really that high on. You have the off-field concerns. He might be a good addition to this offense, but has to stay out of trouble with the Bengals. You never know. Obviously, Jermaine Burton was one that could not figure it out for the Cincinnati Bengals. Brian Parker, interior offensive lineman, I thought he would go way earlier. Versatility, can play any position on the offensive line, could be a backup center, could be guard. Probably not going to be a tackle at the next level, but he did play that well at Duke. Jack Andrews and Landon Robinson to fill out the draft, I thought were solid picks as well. So really like the offseason for the Cincinnati Bengals. Cleveland Browns, we're giving an A+. Now, they get credit for moving down from 6 to 9. They got the player they likely were going to take. They addressed the offensive line. They addressed wide receiver. They got some best players available at different points. Spencer Fano, my top offensive lineman in the draft. Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston, two different types of wide receiver. I think that's going to be huge. They have a guy who's kind of fast and kind of creates separation. They have Denzel Boston, who's a bigger body wide receiver. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, I had a second-round grade on him, but they didn't reach for him like some people were saying was going to happen in the first round. Austin Barber, maybe a guy who never starts, but at least provides some good depth. Parker Brailsford's a little bit undersized. Justin Jefferson, a solid linebacker who can really play athletically, but could see the field a little bit better. Joe Royer, tight end. Taylon Green, just adding to that quarterback room. We'll see what he can do, but very good athletic tools. And then Carson Ryan as well as a solid pick too. I really love the draft. I don't know what it's going to mean for next season. I think they might still be in the quarterback market next season, but I think the infrastructure around that quarterback they might take will be a lot better. We'll keep on going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, giving this one a B-. Now, this was the controversy here. We had them rumoringly, it's not even rumors, they were going to take Mekhi Lemon. They called him, and then the Cowboys traded the pick to the Eagles, division rival. They weren't expecting that. They moved to Max Iheanacho. It was a little bit early for me. I think that's something that maybe hurts them a little bit. Then they get Jeremy Bernard with the next pick. I think that's good because it's going to differentiate from what Michael Pittman and DK Metcalf can do in a different skill set. And I think that's solid. Drew Aller was the pick next, and not the biggest fan. I think if I would have taken a flyer on maybe a different quarterback, but they also have to develop this guy. I think this is a quarterback I expect Mike McCarthy to like. But coming, off the injury, you just took Will Howard last year. I would have liked them to go somewhere else. I would like them to take a different, position to kind of help this team, or take a guy who I think could actually end up being a starter for a long time in this league. That's something that I think best option is to do something different there. Dalen Everett, Jennings Dunker. Dunker, I think, will be really good interior offensive lineman. Caden Wetjen is really going to help the special teams. Riley Nowakowski just feels like a Steeler with the way H-back, blocking, all that. Robert Spears-Jennings and Eli Heidenreich had that really nice moment on stage as he came from the Navy and then got to be cheered on by the Steelers fans. So B- for them. I think if they got Mekhi Lemon, the grade would be different, but I think that it was a little bit of a reach after that point, and that's just what happens in the NFL draft. AFC South, we're going to go to the Houston Texans first. Now, B- for them. I think reached on Keelan Rutledge. I would have thought he's more of a second-round player. It's not the biggest reach in the world, but I had him, I think, rated in the 70s as my overall players. Thought they could have gone somewhere else if they wanted a better interior lineman. Aiden McDonald, that was a really good pick in the second round. That kind of brings the grade back up a little bit. Then they go Marlon Klein, and that's way too early for tight ends. And Jalen Husky as well. And I think kind of the rest of the draft is more, other than Kamari Ramsey and maybe Lewis Bond, I thought it was just reaches. So I have big issues with how they drafted. I think they did try to get areas of need. Cade McDonald's going to fill an area of need. Keelan Rutledge is going to get an area of need. But yeah, I did not like this draft overall. B minus because I think that Cade McDonald pick really pulls things up for him. Indianapolis Colts. I love this draft. All right, so let's go through it. Linebacker C.J. Allen out of Georgia. I think he is a guy who underdrafted in this draft. They were lucky he fell to him. I think he's going to be an impact player right away. A.J. Halsey got him as well at safety. Two areas of need. They banged those out with the first two picks. Jalen Farmer, I think, is a guy who can start in the future. Really good for him. Bryce Betcher, George Gums, Caden Curry, Seth McGowan, Deion Burks. Deion Burks was one that fell. They got late. I thought they good value on him. I thought they got good value on McGowan. I thought they good value on Curry. So overall, I really like the draft. I think those are guys who could be rotational players at the end. And the first three picks, I think, could be starters this year or at very least starters in the future. Jacksonville Jaguars are up next. They get a D. This was a weird draft. I think that this is a draft that they're trying to outsmart the room, and I don't know what really happened here. But let's start it off. We have Nate Borkitcher. This is a tight end that we expected to go way later than where he did, a blocking tight end for the most part. I did not see him going that early. Albert Regis is a solid player. I thought it was a little bit too early for him as well. Emmanuel Pregnon was probably their best pick, got him at a value. And there's reports coming that maybe he didn't interview the right way or something like that. But I think he could be a starter. And then you go to the rest of the draft, and it's just like hard to see the value in some of their picks. At least maybe you get Josh Cameron, who can help you on special teams a little bit. But I was not the biggest fan of this draft. But again, we'll see how it all plays out. These draft grades are fun to do because we rank the players and we go through it every year. We obviously don't know everything. The teams don't know everything. They hit and miss on prospects just like I do. And I thought this was a miss of a draft, but we'll see how they end up impacting this team. I thought they would have had a little better of a draft if they were going to kind of make a push next year. Tennessee Titans are up next. I gave this one a B. Parnell Tate was the first pick, kind of surprised people, but I do think it's good to get Cam Ward another option there. Jeremiah Love's off the board. They can't go with him. Could go offensive line. But they've invested picks in the offensive line in the last couple of years. Now they get the wide receiver. Keldrick Falk was a player that slid, at least according to like my board. I get that he's maybe not the best pass rusher, but I think a big body is something Robert Salah would love to have. Anthony Hill's a linebacker I thought fell as well. That was a good pick as well. The coverage will need to improve, but that is something I think he's a good player. And then Fernando Carmona, Nick Singleton, Jackie Marshall, Pat Coogan, Jaron Kanik. Not going to be as big of players on this team, I don't think, but those first three picks I was very impressed with. Move over to the AFC West now. Denver Broncos get a D for me. There are some good parts of this draft, so I'm going to start that off by saying that. I kind of didn't like, I think they reached on Tyler Onyedum, the defensive lineman at Texas A&M, to start their draft. I thought they could have gotten different positions. I thought they could have done something different. I do like Jonah Coleman, the football player, but they just took R.J. Harvey last year. Could you have waited to take a different running back in this draft? Sure. Cage Casey, is he going to play tackle? Is he going to play guard? Maybe a little bit early for him. I do like Justin Jolie as well. I think he could end up being that wild card that Sean Payton likes. Miles Scott, Dallin Bentley, Red Burdock. I think decent value with at least the last two. I just wasn't the biggest fan overall. It's harder when you don't have that early pick, but I wanted to see more guys who would make an impact for this team next year, or at least we can kind of develop. And yeah, you could say Jonah Coleman's going to get carries next year. And I do like him. I would have thought they maybe would have addressed running back later in this draft, or would have gone more free agent route or something like that. Kansas City Chiefs are next up. Give this one an A. Now, as a reminder, they got the extra first-round pick from trading Trent McDuffie. Mansour Delane was the first pick. They needed corner. They traded up to get him. After the Jemima McCoy fall, it's really cool that they went up and traded up and got him. I think he's a top 5 player in the class and like that pick. Peter Woods was the second pick of the first round. I like that as well for them. Wasn't the biggest need. I thought it was pretty good value at the end of the first. And then R. Mason Thomas has a lot of juice as an edge rusher. I think that's going to really pay off for them. A lot of good berths in there as well. Jaden Kennedy, Emmett Johnson, Cyrus Allen, Garrett Nussmeyer. Nussmeyer obviously fell. Liked the value there. Didn't really like, apparently people saying the interviews didn't go well. The injuries are a concern, but you get a possible backup for Pat Mahomes if he can get healthy, figure out that cyst issue. And I do think he can be a decent backup quarterback for a long time in this league. Las Vegas Raiders get an A. Trading Fernando Mendoza is the first pick. Maybe not the best first overall pick we've seen in history. Probably not the best player in this class, but you needed a quarterback. He is worthy of being the number one pick. I like that. They've set up with free agency, everything to be pretty solid for him when he comes in. Traded Stukes with their second pick, a guy that nickel, safety, whatever you want to use him, was a very good player and fell in the draft more than we thought. Kieron Crawford has a lot of good pass rush potential. as a guy who I think could be a better pro than he even showed in college. Trey Zune, tackle, could he move into center? I think that's good offensive line depth. Jerron McCoy fell, and they traded up to the first pick of the fourth round and got him. I think that is a solid pick. Risk reward. If it's fourth round pick and he doesn't work out, that's fine. But also, if he does work out, that is something that's extreme value there, as he was potentially a top 10, 15 pick even like a month ago when we were talking about it. So good for them for getting him. Mike Washington, would have liked to stay away from running back after taking Ashton Genty last year, but now you get a little bit of smash and dash potential. Dalton Johnson, Hezekiah Massis, I thought was a good pick. Malik Benson, I thought was solid as well. Brandon Cleveland as well. So A for them. Chargers, we have Akeem Mesidor, Jake Slaughter, Brendan Thompson, Travis Burke, Genesis Smith, Nick Barrett, Logan Taylor, and Alex Harkey. Now, I like the edge pick for the Chargers. You could have said they could go interior defensive line. You could have said they can go interior offensive line. But they also needed an edge rusher for this year, kind of a rotational guy, and then also for the future. Mesidor can also rush for the inside. I really liked him as a player. They did get Jake Slaughter later to help the interior offensive line, Logan Taylor later in the draft as well. So they have some options on the offensive line now. I think that's still a weak part of this team, but at least they addressed it in some fashion. And then they also got Brendan Thompson, who's a speedster for the offense that is going to come in with Mike McDaniel. We'll move on to the NFC now, NFC East. The Cowboys, I really like this draft. Now, Caleb Downs, second best player in the draft for me behind Jeremiah Love. They did have to trade up one spot to get him. Didn't have to go up all that much when it's all said and done. I think he's going to be really good for this defense, especially after all the additions they made last year after losing Micah Parsons. But add him in this defense, add Rashawn Gary, Quinton Williams at the end of last year, obviously. This is going to be a defense that should take a huge step forward. Malachi Lawrence is a good pass rusher. Don't know how awful or how good he's going to be against the run. Jayshon Barham, figure out what role he's going to have would be nice. Drew Shelton, I thought was good value. Devin Moore wasn't as high on him as others, but they need corner. LT Overton was solid. I thought this was a very solid draft, and Caleb Downs leading the way with this one. New York Giants are on the clock for us next year. They get an A as well. Now, they were, I think, lucky that Arvell Reese fell to them, but they got him. They have a very versatile defense. They have a lot of good young players up front. Arvell Reese, how's he going to play in this defense? We'll see how that works out. Edge rusher, more of a hybrid linebacker. We'll see Francis Maui-Noah with that second first-round pick. I think he's going to help on the interior to start his career, maybe move out to tackle later, but I think that's good to get that offensive line. Help Colton Hood, the corner out of Tennessee, I think was good value as well to help this defense. Malachi Fields, Bobby Jamison Travis, J.C. Davis, and Jack Kelly, I think were overall solid as well. J.C. Davis, I think, could be a guard at the next level. And we'll move on to the Philadelphia Eagles. They get an A-. Now, A.J. Brown likely going to be traded this offseason, so they go get Mekhi Lemon. They trade up. That's fine. Eli Stowers to help this offense as well. The offense, I would have liked to get a bigger bodied wide receiver to kind of replace A.J. Brown. Getting Mekhi Lemon helps. I would still like for them to do that, get a bigger bodied wide receiver and kind of figure things out. But they get Eli Stowers as well. Markel Bell, would have loved Jeff Stoutland to work with him, but overall, I think it's a solid pick as well. Cole Payton could be a tush-push guy, could be an all-purpose player. We'll see how that works out. They also had a cool pick at the end of the draft with Uar Bernard, who has never played football before, but ran like the fastest time for a 300-pound guy in history on a 4-yard dash at like 4.6 seconds. So the Eagles have done this before, and they turned him out pretty well. I thought it was a solid draft for them. Give them an A-. Washington Commanders, A- for them as well. Sonny Styles, the first pick, linebacker, fell to them. Thought he was one of the top 5 players in the class and really helped this defense. Dan Quinn will love him. Antonio Williams was maybe a little bit high for me. Others not as much. Joshua Josephs, I think, is a good pass rusher. Have to see how he's going to fit overall in terms of a run defender and everything. Katron Allen, the fat man that they call him. Good contact balance, can really help this offense as well. Matt Golban and Nathan Kaliakmanis. Not a lot of picks here. A lot of it's weighted on the first round for all these guys. It's weighted on how you do in the first and second round, maybe. But I thought they did well with the picks they had, and I think this is a really good draft for the Commanders as well. NFC North, going B+ for the Chicago Bears. Now, this goes to good picks here and there. So it's kind of good pick, bad pick. I thought Dylan Dinneman was an excellent pick there. Good range to help this defense. They needed safety. That was awesome. Logan Jones, I thought there was better centers on the board at that point, and I think he's still a solid player, and I trust Ben Johnson to use him, but just the value of it all, I thought there were better players available. Sam Roush, more of a blocking tight end. They took more of the receiving tight end last year with Colson. Loved them. Maybe that's the idea there, but a little bit early for me as well for just the blocking tight end. Xavier Thomas was way early for me as well. Maybe a better running back than a wide receiver, but could be an all-purpose player in this Ben Johnson offense. So I'm excited to see what he can do, despite me not like seeing that he obviously Ben Johnson has the vision. I just don't right now. Malik Muhammad I thought was great value. Keyshawn Elliott and Jordan Vandenberg. I think Vandenberg was a really big hit for them in the late parts of the draft. A guy not going to the combine, but has very good athleticism. I thought that was really solid. Detroit Lions up next, B minus for them. Blake Miller, first round, needed to address tackle. I did think there were some better tackles available, but I do like Blake Miller. Just thought he was more of a second round player or very, very late first. Derek Moore was a little bit early for me on the edge. This is a guy who will be playing across from Aiden Hutchinson, so it's all good. But I just would have thought there's other edge players available that were better. Jimmy Rolder, again, a little bit early for him, but I do like him as a player. Keith Abney fell in the draft. They got good value there. Kendrick Wall has some speed. That could be fun for this offense. Sky Gill Howard and Tyre West were the next two picks to help the defensive line depth there. B minus for them. Not the best overall draft, I don't think, but knowing them, they'll turn on, like Derek Moore will turn into a player that we just, will be awesome. But just the way going into the draft, did not see him being drafted that high. Green Bay Packers get an A. Now, they did not have the first round pick with the Micah Parsons stuff, but Brandon Cisse fell to them. They got him. They got Chris McClellan. They got Denai Dennis Sutton, the edge rusher out of Penn State, Yager Burton, Ramani Jackson, and then a kicker, Trace Mack. That's fine. But I think for the first position player picks for all those, I think it's good value, and I think it can help this defense specifically. You lost Jeff Hafley to the Dolphins. You're going to need some players to help replace things. Yager Burton, I think, is a good center, good depth piece to have. So like this draft from the Packers a decent amount. Minnesota Vikings are the last team in the NFC North. So we're going to go, B for them. Caleb Banks, I thought it was a risky taking him after the foot injuries, so we'll see how he does. But I thought he was very good and worthy of the pick when healthy. Jake Golday, linebacker, I think is going to fit right into this Brian Flores defense. Dominique Orange, another big defensive lineman. So we'll see how they all fit together. But they drafted an area of need, and they got two guys that they could feel like they could put in. Caleb Tiernan, the tackle. Jacoby Thomas, the safety. Fullback, Max Bredesen. Charles Deming, the corner out of Stephen F. Austin. I like him as a smaller school guy. Damon Claiborne and Gavin Gerhardt. Would have said maybe wanted to address the running back position earlier, but I do think Damon Claiborne could be a factor in this backfield next year as well. I'll give it a B. I think the injury risk with Caleb Banks kind of bring this down a little bit, but I think overall they got good players too. I maybe could have addressed more positions too than just getting two defensive linemen with their first three picks. NFC South, we're going to give an A to the Falcons. I like Avion Terrell. I thought he fell pretty far. He's going to play with his brother now. It was a really cool story in this draft. Zachariah Branch, the people can talk about how the routes weren't all that much. Like he could run more routes. He can not be a guy who just gets screens and stuff like that. But I think he can develop that part of his game and really provide some speed to this offense and really open things up for Drake London and Kyle Pitts and whoever plays quarterback for this team. He could be a key piece to this, and I think they got him a good value. Kendall Daniels, Ontario Thompson, Harold Perkins, and Ethan Onyanwa from Ohio State. Harold Perkins is one that didn't really find a true position in college. Can he find one at the pro level? That's something we'll have to see. It is something we'll have to keep tabs on. I think he can be a very good special teams player, and if they can find the right role, it could be really good value. So A for them. Let's move on to the Carolina Panthers. They get a B. Monroe Freeling was their first pick. Now, Ike Ekwonu has that injury last year. Might be tough for him to come back. That's why maybe he's picked and people aren't seeing it as like a big, big need. But if he's out, that's something you're going to need. A guy that is a little bit more raw than I would have liked to take where he was picked, but in this draft, it's fine and can take that risk. Lee Hunter, defensive line. Chris Brazzell, wide receiver. Corner, Will Lee. Interior lineman, Sam Hecht. Safety, Zaki Wheatley. And linebacker Jackson Kuwach. This is, I think, a draft that big risk with Monroe Freeling and trying to develop him. I wasn't as high on Chris Brazzell, but they got him at a rate where I think that's fine. Will Lee, Sam Hecht, and Zaki Wheatley were some of my favorite picks of the latter ones there, and I think there's all those guys could develop into starters down the road. So B for them. B for the New Orleans Saints. Jordan Tyson, Kristen Miller, Oscar Delp, Jeremiah Wright, Bryce Lance, Lorenzo Styles, Barry Brown, and TJ Hall. Now, I will say Jordan Tyson, I think, could really open up this offense with Chris Olave, with Tyler Shuck. They got the interior defensive line picks with Kristen Miller. I think he's a guy who was very worthy of going even earlier than he did. Oscar Delp was a little bit earlier than I thought. He didn't produce the most at Georgia, but he does have a good size and athleticism. And, later on, Lorenzo Styles, I think, has some potential to grow, still learning the defensive back position after starting his career at Notre Dame as a wide receiver. Barry Brown has some really good speed as well, and I think that's going to be fun if they can unlock that, or at least give them special teams ability with his kickoff returns. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, A, edge rusher Ruben Bain Jr. fell to them. Yes, he's an outlier in some sense with the arm length, but he's a very good football player. I think he's at least going to have a high floor in this league. Maybe he'll never be the biggest star, but that is okay at pick number 15. Josiah Trotter, the linebacker, very good against the run. Going to have to improve his coverage, but they needed the linebacker, and they got a pretty good one. Ted Hurst, a bigger bodied receiver. Mike Evans is gone. Get another bigger bodied receiver. Not saying he's going to have the impact Mike Evans did, but just trying to get the same type of body type in the room. Keontae Scott, the nickel player out of Miami, I thought was a good pick as well. Devontae Capehart, Billy Shrout and Bauer Sharp. I think Capehart and Capehart and Shrout are guys who can develop in the future and might be role players in the future. But pretty solid draft for that. I was very happy with what they did and got the edge, got the linebacker. Even got a wide receiver. Again, not the same as Mike Evans, but I think similar in the way that they have big bodies and can win contested catches. All right, we'll move over to the NFC West, the last division here. We're going to go with the Arizona Cardinals first. It's a B. It went back and forth, right? So like Jeremiah love the player. I don't really like the fit. You just brought in all those running backs. Obviously, James Conner's still there. Tyler Algier comes in. Trey Benson's still there. So that's you got to figure out the running back room. I hope they use him as much as possible and get the value out of him because he is a good player and I think he can be a very good player for a long time. You do address the offensive line with Chase Bizantis. I do like that as well. And then you go Carson Beck, and it's like why do you need Carson Beck on this team? You clearly are not trying to win this year. You have Jacoby Brissett, you have Gardner Minshew. I didn't like that pick. Pick a different position, get some depth at a different position because you likely are going to be taking quarterback next year. And even if you think Carson Beck's going to be a backup for a long time, this team had too many needs to waste two of their first three picks on running back and quarterback. Even though I don't mind taking running back, I just think this team isn't set up that way. They already have running backs on the roster, so that's what made this a B. Even though I do like some of the players, I like Jeremiah Love, I like Chase Bisontis, I like the value in Caleb Proctor. But that's what makes it a B. Probably could even go lower than that if you just don't like the fit. I would say B minus or C is even possible for me. Would not go higher than B. That's just how much respect and love I have for Jeremiah Love and Chase Bisontis as prospects and the value they got with them. Just the fit is just what's so weird with this team. Los Angeles Rams get a C. Now, this is a lot of planning for the future in this draft, and maybe that's the right thing to do with the draft that's down. But you also have Matthew Stafford. You have a chance to win now, and this draft did not help them do that. I don't think so. Ty Simpson, I'm fine with them taking Ty Simpson. Quarterbacks go earlier than expected. They have the personal relationship with Les Snead. I thought that he did play well for the first 8 weeks before the rumors of injury came out and their running game kind of piled up. Max Clare joins a tight end room that's already stacked. And it's just like one of those things. Your first two picks are like that. I can like the players. I do like both players. Just one of those is the same with the Cardinals. I just don't like the fit. And for a team that should be trying to go for it all, that's what makes things a little bit frustrating. They did get Trent McDuffie in their trade of their second first round pick, but that is, that's something that I think that they might regret in the future. It's cool to have a good backup quarterback and a guy you can develop, but yeah, I don't know. I think this draft might be one to look back and say we could have gotten this player that could have really impacted winning this year. San Francisco 49ers, give it a B. Now, Dazon Stribling was a guy who was a late riser in the process. I liked him. I thought it was a little bit earlier for him, but I thought, hey, you got a position of need. He's a speedster. He can stretch things vertically. That's nice. Romello Height can give a pass rush juice that you did not get with Michael Williams. Michael Williams can help stop the run. Romello Height can come in on passing downs and help rush the passer. Kalen Black, Grayson Halton, Carver Willis, Jaden Duggar, and Enrique Cruz. I think the back end of the draft, Grayson Halton, best pick back then. Back at that point, can really get some pressure from the interior. But yeah, B, I thought they did okay, but it wasn't the greatest draft overall. Seattle Seahawks going to see. Again, tough because I do like some of the players, but I thought Jadarian Price was picked a little bit too high. Yes, they needed running back. Could they have traded down? Could they have waited? And even if Price gets taken, could you have taken a different running back? I thought that Price was the second best running back, but I thought Jonah Coleman was pretty close. I thought Mike Washington could make a case. It's not like it was like him. I thought him and Love were the two best backs, but I didn't think it was like a huge jump. So that's what made things a little bit interesting for me. Yes, you have Jack Charbonnet coming back from injury, and you could have you needed running back to kind of carry the load, but I didn't think it was as big of a need as some other things. They addressed the secondary after they lost a lot of players. Bud Clark and Julian Neal, both a little bit too early for my tastes, but they did get those taken care of. I also got Andre Fuller later in the draft, but it's a C for me. I think they could have done a better job. If we're going to say for running backs, hey, I think Jeremiah Love can go 3 and it's fine, especially in this draft. I didn't think Jadarian Price is the 32nd best player in this class. I think they could have waited on that. And if they're going to say running backs don't matter as much, or if they day two running backs are usually pretty solid. That's something they could have explored or traded down and got more picks for. So P for that. So those are the 2026 NFL draft grades. Let me know which grades you agree with and which ones you disagree with down in the comments below. We're going to have more content coming out soon. We'll have a 2027 NFL mock draft that I've done for the Game House that I'll go through on the channel here as well. And then we're starting to watch 2027 prospects already. So we're going to try probably get some videos later this month in terms of what prospects I'm watching, what they're good at so far, what they need to work on for the future, and how things might look for the 2027 NFL draft. So if you like this type of content, make sure to like and subscribe as we go along. For now, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.